Good afternoon, class. Just want to check my volume on YouTube. Good afternoon, class. Good afternoon, class. Yes, I am able to hear myself. So, on that note, I can now safely begin with my class. So, once again, welcome all of you to Unacademy. We might soon be the sponsors for IPL. Who knows? There is a lot of momentum that's picking up. Anyway, till then, welcome all of you to our channel, which is Let's Crack Management Exams. And you can actually, we are actually present in about 30 odd entrance examinations, CAT being just one of them. Mm, we're also present in several of the others, such as UGC NET, NEET, UPSC, engineering, JEE, etc. Right, and of course, this is our channel, India's largest online learning platform. This is a brief profile of myself. So, my name is Aritro Dasgupta, and I'm an MBA in forest management, the niche area of forest management from the Indian Institute of Forest Management in located in Bhopal. This is the nodal institute of the Ministry of Environment and Forests, which is now known as Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change. So MOFCECC. Back then, about a decade back, it was merely MOEF. Even before that, there was no environment either. It was just forest management. Right. So 10 years is work experience I've got in the areas of teaching, training, strategy consulting, and content writing. So most of my experience has been India, but I've also worked in the Middle East. I've been published in the USA. Some of my live sessions have been shown to students in a university in Nigeria. Over the last half a decade, toppers of different exams have been my students. So, those in the top 10 have been for exams such as CAT, DUJAT, CLAT, etc. CLAT, of course, will be the first national exam to be held this season since the pandemic was declared. None of the entrance exams have been held, but CLAT will be the first one that will be held shortly. So, what all you're going to get from the Unacademy platform? Of course, you must be already familiar. You get daily live classes. I have been taking live classes for quite a few weeks now, almost a month now, but I've got other teammates as well. So, if you explore our channels, Let's Crack Management Exam here, where my cursor is pointing, you can go through all our sessions. There are constant tests that I will be taking and quizzes on the spot. For example, I can evaluate your scores. If you follow my cursor on the right hand side, there is this, shall we say, the live chat window. So I'll keep engaging you with questions on the spot. There are the course content is structured from the head office itself, which is located in Bengaluru, the IT capital of India. Right, we individual educators, of course, do add value by adding points here, but primarily it is done there. You get unlimited access. The moment you are enrolled on the Unacademy platform, you do not need to worry about missing a class or not being present or having some other personal engagement. There's a day when your best friend's birthday and you just can't attend a lecture, you don't want to. Fair enough, you can always get back to the archives. You can even download some of our sessions. So just to give you an idea, these are some of our star educators. Look at the years of experience they all have, and also the amount of watch minutes and the total number of followers they have. This is just a sample, as is this. There are many other star educators as well in the areas of verbal ability, quantitative techniques, logical reasoning, data interpretation, and of course, in my case, general awareness. Right. So these are some of the other educators. This is how you will receive the notifications for the different classes. And this particular slide is to show you how you will receive the notifications for the specific batches. That was for the classes. Now you will notice there's something slightly different between the information on top versus at the bottom. The one on top is for the entire course. So you have 12 educators or 11 educators on the two sides. 10 plus 1, right? That's 11. So you get a good number of educators. In the bottom, it's for a specific subject, so there's only a single academician who will take over. So similarly, we will be having specific batches with educators, and also those with the overall team. So we have a schedule that works perfectly for you. There is no language barrier. We are present in 16 different languages. You can learn anywhere, anytime. That is not a challenge at all. All you need is a PC, a mobile, or a tab. Okay, so you can obviously answer live polls. I told you about the polls that we will conduct. Apart from this, on the unacademy.com platform where I had my debut earlier this week, from next week onwards, I will increase my sessions on the special classes or the special unacademy.com platform. So there again, it's pretty easy to conduct these live polls. You can get your doubts cleared anytime, anywhere. I've told that to you when you interact with your educator. And since I need to practice what I preach, here is my, I have put in on the live chat window. So please feel free to ask any questions on any topics that you feel like. While we are speaking, there's another live session also going on, which is in logical reasoning. As I told you, there are multiple courses within our channel. So I told you about the live tests which are immediately held. There are also tests which are planned at the center on specific dates. Right, this is planned from the head office itself, from the central content team, and they curate questions which are as real as possible to the real cat. And I've said this before, cracking entrance exams, not just CAT. I've taught students in so many courses. So it's not just about your performance in terms of the intellectual ability, but on the day how you perform. So you need to be conditioned that way. Winning is a habit. So the more and more number of tests you do, you ace, you do well, you keep doing better and better. You get detailed. So all these tests that you will be going through, you'll actually get a detailed report and analysis for that, including per question and per topic, the time you took. This way, you can condition yourself as to which topic needs specific care. Right. Likewise, you also get detailed PDFs and learning materials. So I've taken a number of sessions on YouTube, such as how to thrive in the gig economy. I shared some sample questions which have been asked in recent exams. There was also a session on there was a session I took on ancient Indian history. Of course, I've taken 12 sessions on monthly current affairs. So all of that, if you include, there are a lot of PDFs and learning material that we have created. So please go ahead and work on these points as well. Right, so you will be able to download them. This is a slide which I want all of you to read once. At the bottom is mentioned my code. I think it's also shared on the YouTube as well. This is my code AD09, if you notice. So that's something, if you use, you'll get a 10% straight discount in the course. So you can choose any of these, whichever best suits your performance. I'm somebody who always looks into the long term, so I will say you go for the minimum, the 1 year course, that's 12 months. You, in fact, get 58% off on the total because per month cost is quite low. And if you are younger and if you think you will not be eligible for exams this year, so you are planning for next year, go for 24 months. Even if you're eligible this year, people often go for repeats. The price you pay is only incrementally more and you get substantially more knowledge. So I'll say you go with at least 12 months, but anyway, that's your choice. Please choose a plan that suits you the best. So I am done with the introduction on Unacademy. Hope you've gone through this slide. Just look at all the plans carefully. I will now get the newspaper for the day. And then on that note, we can begin. Right. So I now begin with the content for the day. Right. So I start as usual with your favorite newspaper, which is The Hindu. So, a couple of stories here which I want to discuss with you guys. First of all, this is really big news, and I think many of you would have followed that on social media. Some of you may have received links for the same as well. But the big news is Kamala Harris, who's partly of Indian origin, she's going to be the running mate for Joe Biden. So, let me just explain to you what exactly is a running mate. First of all, the US constitution is very different to ours. Ours is similar to the other Commonwealth nations like Canada, Australia, United Kingdom, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. We all follow broad set of laws known as the common laws, and our constitution and our government is run on a parliamentarian basis where the prime minister is elected by the people, the president is elected by the elected nominees. There's an electoral college. In US, on the other hand, the president, as you are all aware, is directly elected by the people. There are only two parties, while we have multiple parties at any time in parliament or even in the state assemblies. US has only two parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. So Republicans have been in power for the last 4 years, before which for 8 years it was the Democrats. So now what has happened is Kamala Harris, she has been nominated as, so you're probably aware Donald Trump will go for a second term. He's going to be the president elect from the Republican Party, but his direct rival will be Mr. Joe Biden, who is from the Democrat Party. Now, Joe Biden's running mate will be Kamala Harris. Brief background on her: she is partly of Indian origin. Her mother is originally from Chennai. Her father is an economics professor, originally from Jamaica. So she's actually partly Black American, Afro American, and partly Indian American. She'll actually become the first Afro American woman and the first Indian American woman who is going to occupy such a high post. In fact, she might become the first woman president. US has never had a woman president till date. Apparently, one of the world's greatest democracies never had a woman president, unlike ours and those of several other developing countries which have seen strong female leaders. US has never seen that. So what's a running mate? Running mate, as the name suggests, accompanies the presidential candidate across the speeches and is the front runner for the post of vice president. The president can choose somebody else as vice president, but the general consensus, there's no rule as such, but this is believed, this is understood by unwritten protocol, that whoever is the running mate becomes the vice president once the candidate becomes the president. And again, it is again, there's no rule, but it's understood that whoever is the vice president ends up being the presidential candidate in a few years' time. We saw Al Gore contesting in 2000 against George W. Bush. Al Gore was the vice president when Bill Clinton was the president. So similar cases, they keep arising, though doesn't always happen, but that's a possibility. Right. So this is something of pride for Indians, because she is obviously of Indian origin. Can you name some other global leaders who are of Indian ancestry? And I'm not including countries like Mauritius or Trinidad and Tobago or Guyana, even Fiji to an extent, where there is a significant ethnic Indian population. Mauritius, majority of people are of Indian origin. Trinidad, Guyana, and Fiji, about 40% population is of Indian origin. But a country where Indians are really small minority. Can you think of any country? Any country you can name? Let me put that question on YouTube's live window. Can somebody tell me who is Ireland's prime minister? He's of Indian origin. He was, I believe, in his late 30s or barely 40 when he became the. He's the president, I think, not the prime minister. I'm not sure. I'll need to check. Just the post I need to check, since I've written it down. Just give me 1 second only. It's good to be sure, rather than. Right, the prime minister. So I was correct in that sense. Right? Yeah. So his name is Leo Varadkar. Let me just reveal to you. He's openly homosexual. He's a former doctor. In fact, he took up the position of a doctor while the pandemic was on. He briefly resigned from his post and went back to his older profession of being a doctor. Um, yeah. Fair enough. Ireland does have something of an Indian origin population because it's broadly an English speaking country, so fairly easy for Indians to thrive there. Uh, Lots of white collared workers like himself, who's a doctor. Right. The next piece of news I want to discuss is about something to do with COVID 19 and CSIR. The Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, they have, in order to ramp up further testing, please understand we now are testing about 6 lakh individuals every day, which is much, much higher than what was even a few weeks back. We've apparently tested about 2 crore people in the country. I mean, that is as per the data. So that's almost 2% of the population, not bad at all. But to further boost that, because the Prime Minister day before yesterday met the chief ministers of 10 states, and one of the things that really stood out, and what the Prime Minister and several chief ministers as well are constantly reiterating, is to test, test, and test more. That's what all specialists have said. If you test more people, we can actually isolate those with some form of symptoms. So CSIR is going to come up with a mega labs. They have already been approved by the CSIR, and it's going to involve next generation sequencing, which is going to scan the entire virus genome. So two lineages of the virus have been found in one of the current affairs sessions. I did discuss with you that there was one particular genome which has affected Indians the most. There are 361 variants of COVID-19 itself. There could be more, but as of now, we already know a staggering 361 of them. Some of them are more virulent, some have a less virulent strain. The one which has afflicted India is less virulent, which is one of the reasons which explains our low fatality rate and low per million contacting of the disease of the virus, right? So this is one of the reasons. The death toll has crossed 47,000. It's now the fourth highest. We've overtaken the United Kingdom. We are only behind Mexico, Brazil, and USA. USA is on top of this, followed by Brazil. Like USA, it's crossed 100,000. Mexico has crossed 50,000. Yesterday's toll was 948 people died. I told you the news of Rajasthan. I've been covering it for a while now, so all is okay now. The government has continues working, the one which was elected by the people few years back. Okay, so there is actually a new parliament building which is set to be made. It's known as the Central Vista. Not only includes parliament but also several other things. It will be away from the present Lutyens Delhi, not too far, but it'll be somewhere in around central Delhi. So three firms have particularly been asked to sign secrecy affidavits because they are working on this new parliament. So news must not leak out to other stakeholders, people who are not relevant stakeholders. Right, there was okay, fair enough. I'll move into some of the local pages now. Okay, there's something I wanted to discuss with you from yesterday's paper, which I had ignored yesterday by chance. So there's also something known as a lot of people are now questioning if COVID-19 is not airborne, then why are the international bodies such as the WHO insisting so much on masks? In fact, many doctors do believe it might be airborne as well. Many people have written. There was a group of doctors who wrote an open letter to the WHO stating that it is an airborne disease. However, if you look closely into the details of the open letter and generally other findings, what you will notice is that while it is airborne, it is only open for it remains airborne for a certain amount of time. So there are a couple of diseases which spread through airborne, such as tuberculosis. They spread much quicker. Whooping cough, the common flu, COVID-19, they spread less quick because they take up the droplets form and not the aerosol form. Aerosols are small microns which spread very quick. So there is this debate going on this thing, but the general broad consensus is that the aerosol route is applicable in some closed surfaces, but in the open it does not follow that. So as long as you wear mask, masks, you're well protected. But you no need to be extra panicky for this. But that's what is generally understood. There is this report from the state of Punjab where we have seen in recent times how there have been clashes between different caste groups in India regarding burial sites. And in fact, a lot of researchers have gone to the grassroots and they have come up with this thing that a lot of the oppressed communities in the country, those which are the lower caste, they've often felt that they more than water and electricity and roads, one thing they need is respectable burial grounds, which they often don't get, because now price of land is really high. So what a lot of people in Punjab have done, this is a really heartwarming story, especially in the district of Patiala, also a bit in the district of Barnala. What has happened is a lot of common centers have been set up, common burial grounds where people of all castes and other religions as well, they can be buried. This is definitely a step ahead and hope it can continue. Right, moving on to some of the local news. We've spoken enough about the so far flawed model with the DU open book examinations. No, perhaps the model isn't wrong, but yes, there have been technical glitches. No need to go further into this. So DDA, Delhi Development Authority, they have faced a flurry of litigation over the last couple of over a certain period regarding ownership rights. There has been some sort of conflict. So in order to speed up the registration of new owners, they have now tied up with CSCs. There are also lots of illegal colonies whose people can now register at the nearest place. What are CSCs? These are common service centers. So they have been tied up with, so that all these complaints can be and all the registrations can take place at some of these designated centers. Yesterday was also the International Elephant Day. I discussed with you some of the important days and dates from the month of June when I was doing my current affairs session on June yesterday. So it seems Elephant Day was yesterday, so there was a grand celebration of elephants in different zoos within the city of Delhi itself, as well as in other parts of the country. Right. Further from Delhi, there is news of this market called the Meherchand market, where several shops were sealed a few years back, about 135 buildings in total, home to far larger number of shops. They were sealed a few years back due to them being found flouting several of the norms, and so that is why. But now the SDMC, or the South Delhi Municipal Corporation, they have given the go ahead for redevelopment of this area. So that should eventually increase the number of footfalls, because when you have so many buildings sealed, even the ones which are not sealed, even they tend to receive less of the traffic. We've seen this in several markets in Delhi, but there is this move to legalize this thing, to legitimize whatever wrong has happened and to take care of the matter. I think fire safety is one of the things they really need to work on. We've seen several issues in recent years, not just in Delhi, but all over the country on different crowded markets. So that's one thing that needs to be urgently taken care of. Otherwise, opening up the economy is a major mm, uh, target right now. So Independence Day celebrations will also be held at the Delhi Secretariat here this year. And a special note will be read out for the COVID warriors from the state of Delhi, or I should say from the NCT, National Capital Territory. That's how Delhi is officially registered as. So tobacco, it is much discouraged, the consumption of tobacco. But of course, there still is a market. Millions of people are somewhere or the other involved in this. Lots of common farmers working on this. So the industry still requires a lot of regulation. So a licensing system for tobacco sellers has been sought by different parts of the country. So this was especially in Rajasthan. So you might be aware of, I've been speaking about this, the National Socialist Council of Nagaland, or the NSCN. with the IM faction of the NSC, and that has been conducting protracted talks with the governor of the state, Mr. Ravi, who's representing the central government regarding a peace deal. They're having discussions because Nagaland has been a disturbed territory for years. There have been insurgent activities in the past, separatist movements, or at least there have even been suggestions about mergers with Myanmar. So there have been a lot of issues in the past. Things have closed down now. Things are much better now. But there's one, but you still have a negotiation now. The state of Arunachal Pradesh, which, as you know, is not far from Nagaland, they have, however, said that any Naga peace deal or peace accord which is signed now, Arunachal Pradesh should be kept out of this because there are very few people from the Naga tribes. Nagas are not a single tribe. There are 16 sub tribes within the Naga ethnicity or whatever you term. So Arunachal Pradesh does not have any of the indigenous ones. Of course, many people would have moved in now, like people from one state move to another, but not any indigenous tribes. So Arunachal Pradesh's Students' Union, which is AAPSU, the All Arunachal Pradesh Students' Union, wants that this should not be, they should be kept out of any deal which is formed. So this was initially discussed when the present Defense Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, he was the Home Minister in the previous, the Modi 1 government. So they feel that that should be respected again. There's an interesting story from the state of Madhya Pradesh, especially the district of Panna, which is, I think many of you would associate Panna with the Panna National Park or Panna Tiger Reserve, which is one of India's foremost dry deciduous forests. So, in the district of Panna, which is also one of the poorest in the state, there is this initiative which was taken a couple of years back, which is now yielding us a lot of benefits. About half a decade back, there was a skating ring that was set up. That seemed odd at that time. People did not really know what that is. People thought it might be some park, or maybe it could be a auditorium, a school, hospital, whatever, even a hostel for students. But eventually, when they found this out, many people were not enthusiastic. But some of the kids, they started practicing skateboarding. Now, skateboarding, please understand, is going to be part of the Olympics next year. And this district in Panna has already given us two skaters for the 2018, the 2 years back, there was a skating world championship held. Two of them were represented the country. And in fact, one of the skaters, her name is Miss Asha Gond. She belongs, as the name suggests, from the Gond tribe. MP is home to a large tribal population. She's only 21 years old, but she says, thanks to skating, I have a career, I have an external world. Otherwise, I would have already been married off. So this just shows the cultural situation right now. So I can see there are a couple of people watching now. Do let me know if there are any comments. मैंने एक सवाल पूछा था ऊपर. If you guys missed out that question, please write down the answer. And there was a reason why I asked that question in today's class. Right. So moving ahead, I'll come to the fifth page, which is on West India. So number of cases, almost every day I'm seeing that the number of cases of COVID-19 are actually increasing. And now again, this has happened. Maharashtra has seen 13,408 new cases yesterday. More than 1,000 of them in the city of Mumbai itself. Jaggu, are you here? Shreya, are you here? Because you've been regular students. Do let me know. See if you can answer the question that I have asked. Jaggu, Shreya, or anybody else who's here. My mistake, there was, I actually read things wrong. Maharashtra has recorded maximum single day recoveries. So please forgive the slip of the tongue. I misunderstood. The state has seen record number of recoveries and not new cases. My apologies. It's actually 13,408 recoveries in a single day, which is a record. So it's actually great news. More than 1,000 of them recovered in Mumbai. Now, one of the MLAs from the NCP, the Nationalist Congress Party, which is right now in power in Maharashtra, they were in power the party was set up in 1999. 15 years they were in power with the Congress, 5 years out of power when Shiva Sena and BJP were together. But now again they're part of the three-pronged alliance, also involving Shiva Sena and the Congress. So the MLA, her name is Miss Aditi Tatkare. She has set up a boat service and a boat ambulance between Mandwa and the gateway of India, which is in Mumbai. This is going to. Good afternoon, Jaggu. Good to see you. See if you can answer this question. मैंने पूछा था who is Ireland's Prime Minister. Right. So yes, because now most of the city has been flooded, so not much of many ambulances are unable to reach their destinations, and that is where this is something which can really help on. Right. The IMD Indian Meteorological Department forecasts further rains for Mumbai. Right, there is one story at the bottom. Before that, Jaggu, you had discussed with me about the newspaper few days back, and I told you if you attend my session, that should be enough. Apart from this, you can just read maybe for an hour the newspaper. Are you sticking to that plan? Please let me know, because that is something that will be really helpful for you. Okay, so you're probably aware of the Padma Awards, Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, and Padma Vibhushan. All these awards are given by the central government, and typically they're handed out on 26 January by the president during the Republic Day, ceremony. So now individual states need to send their it's an option in fact, but usually what happens is individual states, they send a recommendation to the center for the center to approve. And of course maximum awards are in Padma Shri because that is the starting level. So Maharashtra, as every year, will be sending out its list, and that Padma panel, it is known as, because they will decide who all people are to be sent. Okay, great, Jaggu, nice to see your answer. कहाँ था मैं? Yeah, so Aditya Thackeray, who is also an MLA, I think from South Mumbai. He's also the Minister of Environment, if I'm not wrong. He's the son of the Chief Minister, Sri Uddhav Thackeray, and grandson of the Shiva Sena founder, Sri Bal Saheb Thackeray. He, of course, will be heading this panel. Yeah, Bharat Ratna is not part of the Padma Awards. Bharat Ratna is separate. But yeah, that is the highest honor in the country. Let me just write down the name of the Prime Minister of Ireland. And why is this relevant? That's because the first president, he's of Indian origin. And the running mate of USA, the next election is going to be Miss Kamala Harris. So she could actually become eventually, maybe 4 years or 8 years from now, could be a presidential candidate from the USA. She's a former Attorney General of, okay, let me just read out some things from her highly impressive, shall we put it, CV, if I may use the term. She was born in San Francisco, in California. She wants Medicare for all. Has served as the District Attorney of San Francisco 2004 to 11, then the Attorney General of the entire state of California till 2017, has been a US Senator from California the last 3 years. So likewise, Leo Varadkar, also of Indian origin and one of the top achievers in that field. Right, the final news from page number 5 is about an organization called IISER. Have you heard of IISER? It's Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research. It's located, it has a few centers, but the one in Pune is the one that I will be talking about today. So a couple of scientists or rather in Bhopal, my apologies. So some of the scientists located, situated at the Bhopal center of the IISER, they have done a study on seed germination that will definitely lead to crop improvement. So this is actually post-germination technique. Germination, once the seeds do sprout. I'm maybe born in India, that is not certain, but of Indian origin. So even if your parents were born in India and you were born in that country, but you still remain somebody of Indian origin. So about Kamala Harris, as far as I know, she is born in USA. I'm certain of that. She was born in San Francisco, but her mother is an American citizen. Right? Let me just write out to you about Kamala Harris. Mother from Chennai, father from Jamaica. Have you heard of this country, Jamaica? If you watch cricket, you will understand they're part of the West Indies. West Indies is not one country; it's a group of island nations. So yeah, her mother plays for her mother is from her father is from Jamaica, an economics professor. But yeah, ethnic Indian. So right. So if you and I migrate to US and our kids are born there, but they still remain of Indian origin, right? Even the president of Portugal is of Indian origin. His father was a poet in Goa. So Goa and Portugal are two countries, and now who knows? Maybe USA, right? Okay. Okay. So anyway, as I was talking about IISER Bhopal, scientists have discovered a tool to improve the stress defense mechanism post germination. Germination is once the seeds have sprouted, once the flowers have come up, that's when this is going to be in place. Right, this method is known as ABA or abscisic acid. That is going to play a big role in that. There were lots of junior researchers here, students, PhD students, but the person who is really leading that is Dr. Saurav Datta, who is one of the senior professors at the IISER in Bhopal. Now, moving into the editorial page, there's some news on what's happening in the East European country of Belarus. I've been speaking about Belarus the last, yes, Caribbean Premier League. That's correct. CPL. That's right. Yeah. So the last couple of days, I have been speaking to you about Belarus. Have you heard of this country in Eastern Europe, neighbor of Russia, former member of the USSR? So this country had its elections, and the person who has been in power since the mid 90s, which is basically when Belarus separated from the USSR, he has won yet another election, so his term is going to extend. The person who lost to him, she's a woman, former English teacher. Her husband is a prominent YouTuber, been imprisoned because of his anti-government views. She, of course, lost, but there were lots of street protests in Minsk, the capital. She has fled, I told you yesterday, to neighboring country Lithuania. The Lithuanian ministers have welcomed her, stating that her life was in danger because the president, Lukashenko, president of Belarus, he apparently runs a lot of gangs, which of course will end up threatening her. So that's why she had no option but to come over. It was not forced by the government, but she came over. So more than 2,000 people were present on the streets of Minsk protesting against this thing. So why is this so significant? Please understand, Belarus, since it separated, okay, so there were 15 constituent units of the USSR, right? Which broke up. So in the early 90s, when USSR broke up, there were 15 independent countries. Five of them are in Asia. They are Muslim majority countries, the stans. So they are slightly culturally separate from Russia, and also because of their distance from main Russia. So Russia is a huge country, extends all the way to the Japanese border, but the core of Russia stays in Western Europe. No, not Western Europe. I mean the west of Russia, which is in Europe. So west of the Ural Mountains. The Ural Mountains form the boundary between Europe and Asia. Because those five stans are so far from the original, from Moscow, they are less impacted by what Russia does. Rather, they're now much more impacted by what Beijing does. They have sort of become proxy Chinese colonies. So their influence with Russia is less. तो इन पांचों को हटा दो. बाकी जो 10 है उनमें एक तो रशिया खुद है. So we have 9 remaining. Among the 9, if there was one country that was the most loyal to Russia, and it has throughout mentioned how it was a glorious association with Russia all these years of being USSR, that is Belarus. Right? There have been stray cases in other countries, but the three Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, the country I just spoke about, they have been the most separatist, the most vehemently anti-Russia during this period and pro-West. So Lithuania, like Estonia and Latvia, have taken a very pro-Western stance. Belarus has taken up a very pro-Russia stance. However, in the last couple of years, the last 2 to 3 years, there has been a significant policy change in Belarus. The country and its president have been forming a more pro-West policy because they feel economic growth will be higher there. In fact, you saw recently during the lockdown itself, Belarus went out of its way to celebrate 7th May. 7th May is V-Day in Europe. That's when Germany lost the Second World War. Russia did not do much because of the lockdown. but Belarus took out a massive air show to sort of show Russia that, see, we are better than you. This is a big blow for Russia. Why? Because Belarus is actually okay. So Russia is a major exporter of natural gas, and where does it flow from? Just look at the map of Europe once. This is Russia, massive country. If you can see my hands right now, don't have a map to show you. I can actually, if you allow me, I can take you to Google Maps and show you. Um, so Russia is on the west, of course, massive country. And of course, yeah, is on east. On the west, you have proper Europe. Beach में आता है Belarus. So if I just show you a route from say Moscow to say Paris. Paris, of course, is in France. Yeah, I'll show you by road just to give you an idea. Right, so this is Belarus. If you can follow my cursor, this is Moscow, and on the western corner, you have got France. And this is where the most affluent of European countries like Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, Switzerland, Italy. Further down, you have Spain, Austria, and of course, further to United Kingdom. This side, you have Denmark and the Nordic countries. So the entire route towards this extremely affluent bloc is via Belarus. There are other ways. I've already told you these three countries have been anti-Russia, and Ukraine and Russia have also seen sort of their relations have blown hot and cold. At times it's been very good. At times it's been really bad. Like in 2014, when there was the Crimean crisis, it plunged to an all-time low. So Belarus has throughout been a Russian ally. Belarus से ही सारा natural gas Western Europe पे transport होता था. There's a major pipeline, but with Belarus taking up a much more Western stance, this was a big problem for Russia. अभी क्या हो रहा है? There's again a plot change. So Belarus, I told you last couple of years. I hope you understood the map. The last couple of years, Belarus has been taking up a more pro-Western stance that Belarus has been taking. This has benefit, but now with all these protests on the street, the Western media is showing this in a very bad light, because Western countries, they are generally, at least they consider themselves the keepers of democracy. So with democracy struggling, there's an anti-Belarus movement. So maybe the president of Belarus and the economy will once again have to fall back on its traditional ally of Russia, since it's going to get such bad press in the West, which will eventually hurt its economy. Right. So on that note, I hope you guys understood this entire Belarus incident. It's very important from a global geostrategic point of view. Okay, now moving ahead, there is this article on stop dismantling the environmental rules. I'm not going to analyze this much. I haven't gone through it, but this has actually been written by Miss Sonia Gandhi, the interim chief of the Congress. Right, so she's right now the MP of Raebareli in eastern Uttar Pradesh. So you can probably go through this once. Uh, Below that, there's an article by Mr. T. Jacob John, who's a retired professor of clinical virology from the extremely well-known CMC in Vellore, Tamil Nadu. He's also the past president of the Indian Academy of Pediatrics. His co-writer in this article has been Mr. M.S. Shashadri, who's again retired professor of medical endocrinology, again at the CMC Vellore. So they are colleagues. He's also been the medical director at Tirumalai Mission Hospital, Ranipet, again in Tamil Nadu. So I told you a few days back about vaccine nationalism. Thanks, Jaggu. So let me ask you a question. You all know the word nationalism, and you all know about vaccines. Do you know what does this term mean, vaccine nationalism? Do you know this term vaccine nationalism? Can somebody tell me? Just mix up the two words, vaccine and nationalism. You know the meaning of both the words. So do let me know what you are understanding by this term, Jaggu. And I think there are four people viewing, so any of the others can answer as well. Right, let me see if you've answered something there. No, nothing so far. Okay, तो अभी तक कुछ आंसर आया नहीं है. So vaccine nationalism, as the name suggests, it is a form of nationalism. Okay, what is nationalism? It means, so there's a term called patriotism. Patriotism is love for your own country. Nationalism is love for your country, but in a way that you dominate the rest. Where your nation comes out on top versus the others. So while patriotism is more of a defensive term, nationalism is often a dominating term. One could also say it's a slightly aggressive term. Not in a wrong way, but shall we say positive aggression. Now, nationalism in the case of vaccines, it means that there are more than 100 candidates. Okay, okay, very good. Race to get vaccines. So there are 100 plus candidates which are now looking to create the ideal vaccine. The reason why so many countries are trying to develop their vaccines is because some of them could end up hoarding while the others may not get. Also, the some who get it, they might dabble it with their friends. Russia, for instance, claims to have developed a vaccine, and one of the first countries that's gonna be part of their plan is Brazil. Remember, both of them are part of BRICS. Apparently, the Philippines leader Rodrigo Duterte is also part of their plans. The UAE also, it seems, but can't really follow that correction. But anyway, you got my point. So these writers, they have spoken out against vaccine nationalism. They are saying more than a vaccine, it's about vaccination. This should be for all age groups, and an innovative delivery platform is needed at a time. Phase 3, which is right now going on for several drugs, this for this you usually require healthy volunteers. In fact, there's a global network called Gavi, which is there to ensure that vaccines can be accessible to all kinds of people and poorer countries as well. And there is also this attempt so that the Serum Institute of India, based in Pune, which is working on the Oxford. Yes, that's correct, Jago. Which is working on the Oxford drug that should be quite cheap. In fact, there are suggestions it could be as cheap as $3 per dose. $3 would be roughly 225 rupees as per the present exchange rate. So if that stays, that should be pretty good. Right. There's another article on Huawei, the Chinese telecom giants, and this was written by Mr. Harsh Pant, who is director at the studies at the Observer Research Foundation and the professor of international relations at the King's College in London. He has spoken about how Huawei needs to be shut because they are shut out by the other countries. That's a spying mechanism. A lot of telecom towers in India were in the past constructed by them, and some of this could lead to a lot of these spying claims. And he feels that there's a domino effect right now taking place across US and Europe, and lots of countries have now realized how dangerous Huawei is as a company. And India's response is also awaited worldwide now, so India must also follow suit. There's another article. This is on tigers, and the article says how the tiger can regain its stripes. It's written by Mr. K. Ullas Karant, who is the director at the Center of Wildlife Studies in Bengaluru. He speaks about encouraging news on how tiger numbers Yes, that's correct. Musical Charaya. Good to see a new person today. I think you are attending my class for the first time. Your answer is absolutely correct. So, this is something which is really dangerous for lots of countries worldwide, and we need to have plans in place to tackle that. That's what Gavi is looking into. There is this organization. Look into, just study a little bit on Gavi. They are trying to ensure that it is all done equitably between the countries. All those who are attending my classes and hope you are liking them, do help me with upvotes, likes, shares, and do subscribe as well. Do share with your friends, because general awareness is often not seen as a core subject in CAT. So a lot of CAT students start preparing for GK very late. Please don't do that. Since you guys are attending, do share the word with your friends. Okay, so continuing from about the tiger, so what this person, this researcher speaks about is International Tiger Day was a few days back. You might remember 29 July. India has done very well in the last couple of years. You can say decades, when our numbers had gone down to below 2000, well below 2000s, but now our numbers have gone above 3000. We've also collaborated very well with neighboring countries, Bangladesh and Nepal, because obviously, thanks to the way borders operate, borders are for humans and not for animals. So there's sometimes an undercounting or an overestimation due to at the point where you're doing the census, tigers might be in the other country. So that is why this time these two countries were taken in together. We have about 3,500 wild tigers now. That's what the Global Tiger Forum suggests. However, the writer says that the amount of space India has, we could easily, and this is something that does sound a little different to the usual. He does state that we could have about 10,000 to 15,000 tigers eventually. I'm not completely sure of this. Of course, I'm not a researcher of this level. I have not dedicated my life to tigers as he has. But my fear is that a lot of the forests we have, only 6% of the total land in India is actually protected forest. And we are seeing this case in many forests, that number of tigers has increased due to the massive protection this animal enjoys, but the prey population has not increased. In fact, villages and other human settlements, they are encroaching right in. So when you have too many tigers, they tend to land up on human habitations, and that leads to other problems. We know there could be other issues. They could drive leopards out, and leopards, they love preying on human livestock. So again, I don't want to get into that, but so I'm not completely sure, but this writer says we can do that. He cites an instance for a forest in Karnataka and how the numbers had been decimated, but now it has come up real strong. There are now 400 tigers at a place where there were only 70 tigers few decades back when he was part of it. He also speaks about how Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, when he was the Prime Minister, he had promoted a technocrat, Mr. Suresh Prabhu, who was from the Shiva Sena, part of the alliance, and later he joined the BJP. So Mr. Suresh Prabhu was then the environment minister, and he took up a lot of proactive steps. However, he was replaced later on when he was given a more glamorous ministry. There are some ministries are more glamorous, I think. So after that, things actually went bad, and so there were lots of attempts. Even Dr. Manmohan Singh, when he was Prime Minister, there was a TTF that was appointed, Tiger Task Force, but it ended up being a paper document. Not much was done, sadly, during this period. And in fact, even when the first Modi government took over in 2014, a lot of the bureaucrats, they continued. They just changed. The party was changed, but the working patterns remained pretty similar for a while. But now we can see on the ground, a lot of NGOs have been involved, and that I feel is a really positive step. Please understand, there's one big difference between India and Africa. Africa has historically been sparsely populated. Countries like Kenya and Tanzania, or South Africa, which have vast jungles, they are not very densely populated. Nothing like India. South Africa's population is less than, say, the state of Karnataka. I mean, the population of Delhi, Mumbai, and Kolkata combined is roughly equal to South Africa. Kenya and Tanzania would be much lesser, right? So what happens is, in these countries, forests are for animals, because they know that for them real estate is forest. So these countries earn a lot of foreign revenue from tourists. So Kenya and Tanzania, they are ruthless in in having people out, except for some tribals like the Maasais, who have historically been associated with forests, but mostly they are bereft of people. There are very less human-animal conflicts. India, on the other hand, is so densely populated. All the jungles in the country, they exist within, they're like tiny holes within vast human settlements. So we can't ignore people completely. And that is where, okay, okay, no problem, Charaya. That's good to know because that's the beauty of Unacademy. You might miss a live session, but you can listen to the lectures later on. I think that is a wonderful thing. No problem at all. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. Even now, for anything in the past or even the past sessions, I do keep checking out for the comments. So you can actually write anything if there's any queries that you have regarding exams, right? So in India, you cannot ignore the people, unlike in Africa. So NGOs need to be involved. That's what he has written about. Okay, moving on further to some of the local pages. I had told you about the mega labs being set up for boosting COVID-19 testing. Um, Pranab Mukherjee, the former president, former finance minister, his health is not improving. So this is something which is a worrying sign. There was a bit of violence yesterday in Bengaluru. This is something that needs to be condemned strongly. The United Arab Emirates, this is of course one country which is one of the most friendly to India from that Middle East region. And you know now the IPL will be held there. By the way, Unacademy for IPL is really trending on social media, on Twitter, this hashtag. But on a side note, UAE, besides IPL, they're also opening up visas for Indians because until now there was this rule that the visas were there only if you have fresh visas. This was for the last few months. There were restrictions due to COVID-19, but now the Indian central government and the UAE, they have worked out a method that any kind of valid visa you have for the UAE, you can travel, no problem there. Right. I've been speaking about this landslip in Idukki in Kerala. The toll has gone up to 55. That's tragic for the families there. A new scheme has been launched by the Andhra Pradesh government known as the YSR Cheyuta scheme, launched by the Chief Minister, Mr. Jagan Mohan Reddy. And this is aimed at women. So I'll just read out to you the exact this thing. So it says under this scheme, each woman in the age group of 45 to 60 years will get an annual financial assistance of rupees 18,750, which amounts to rupees 75,000 in 4 years. Nearly 23 lakh women would be benefited by this scheme. So this is to help out women. There are two new combat helicopters that have been deployed in Leh in Ladakh. Okay, there's some news from Bihar politics. You know, Bihar election is due in November. A lot of the political parties, especially those in the opposition, they have wanted the election. They want the election to be postponed due to COVID-19, and many fear that elections will lead to another single source. You understand single source, where there's a single place where a lot of people have congregated, and this could lead to massive spread. And of course, Bihar, the numbers are rising in terms of COVID-19. In addition, Bihar is also struggling from the flood situation. So, in the state of Bihar, there are a couple of, so among the parties that are actually supporting the election to be held now is the ruling JDU, or the Janata Dal United, led by three-time Chief Minister Mr. Nitish Kumar, also former Union Rail Minister. He has been in the Vajpayee government. Besides this, the BJP is sort of neutral right now because, being at the center, the Election Commission of India, and the BJP, they need to work together. The opposition parties and LJP, which is the third member of the ruling NDA, LJP stands for Lok Janshakti Party, which is led by Mr. Ramvilas Paswan, who's presently Union Minister, Food Minister at the center. They have actually joined the opposition in this case in wanting to delay the election. So there have been a lot of opinions going on regarding this between the parties regarding seat sharing. Those arrangements will need to be worked out in the opposition as well between the Congress and of course the RJD led by Mr. Tejasvi Yadav, which does seem primed to be to be the leader of the opposition right now. They were the single largest party, remember last time, but of course the alliance was broken 2 years underway when the JDU shifted to the BJP. Right. So there's also an interview of Mr. Chirag Paswan, who's son of Mr. Ramvilas Paswan, and right now the party head. I believe he's an MP. I'm not sure, but he's also a former actor in cinema. Fair enough. I'll move into some of the other news. This is tragic case of a Congress spokesperson, Mr. Rajiv Tyagi. He passed away yesterday due to a heart attack. Incidentally, just an hour after he returned from a television debate on the Aaj Tak channel. There's an award, a very prestigious award, which is given out each year by the Home Ministry. So this will be granted to 15 officers from the CBI. CBI, of course, does fall under the Home Ministry. Mm, so one of them is for the Dabholkar murder case, right? So 15 CBI officials will in total be awarded this Home Minister's medal, right? So real congratulations to them. There has been a something of a anyway. This is I've spoken to you about the Nagaland incident. There's a report on how the pandemic has hit education real badly. So you guys, nothing to worry. You're here studying online. Please take maximum benefit out of that. Himanta Biswa Sharma, who's actually one of the strongest leaders in the Assam BJP, formerly was from the Congress. He has mentioned how the worst of COVID-19 for the state of Assam may be behind. So that seems encouraging news. There's, however, news from bird life. I spoke about tigers as something on a certain bird. Let me write down to you the name of the bird. Have you heard of this? It's actually a really important bird when it comes to a certain festival. Have you heard of this word, hornbill? Please let me know. Have you heard of this bird? There's also a very famous hornbill festival which is celebrated. Right. Let me see for responses if anybody has. Can't see the responses yet. I'll just switch off the AC for a moment. It's getting really cold. It's good to keep switching off the AC from time to time. It's raining as well. I mean, it was raining in the morning, not anymore. No responses yet on the hornbill, so I will proceed to tell you. It is a bird, really well-known bird. And there is a festival held every year in Nagaland called the Hornbill Festival. This was started to unite, as I told you, Nagaland is a group. Nagas are a group of 16 distinct tribes. So this was started to unite all the 16 tribes to one festival, typically held in January, February each year. The state of Tripura has also started another version of the Hornbill Festival because they are, of course, a neighboring state and they have been influenced as well. Now, a couple of things here. Now, hornbills, they're really important to that region culturally and for the ecosystem. So, in there's this report says that there is a forest loss that is happening in the region, which is threatening the existence of hornbills. Four hornbill varieties in particular have been found. The name of the forest is the Papum Reserve Forest, PAPUM Reserve Forest, which is next to the Pakke Tiger Reserve. This is in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, again, not far from Nagaland. So there are three kinds of them found in Papam, which are, one is the Great Hornbill, which is the biggest one, the one on which the festival is celebrated. Another is the Wreathed Hornbill, and the third one is the Oriental Pied Hornbill. Its total 862 square kilometers is sorry, the Papam is 1,064 square kilometers, really large territory. The adjoining Pakya Tiger Reserve is 862 square kilometers big, and this has another fourth species, which is the rufous necked hornbill. No responses yet. Right, so they are facing some kind of habitat loss. There's a lot of illegal logging. Logging, you understand, cutting of trees for timber, which is taking place in this region. So again, much work needs to be done. This is as per a report by the Global Forest Watch 2020 report. The state apparently lost more than 1,000 square kilometers of primary forest. Primary is first hand from forest, which are old growth original trees which were never touched by humans. They have been replaced by secondary plantations, which are for timber purposes, which are for commercial purposes, but they're not as, these can't really replace the real old growth forests. I was talking to you how pandemic has hit education. So one of the states, Punjab, has taken on a proactive step to distribute smartphones, and they have already started doing that in 26 places. It's a total 92 crore rupee project known as the Smart Connect scheme launched by the Punjab government that has hit underway. There are a couple of light stories on history. There's also one on a butterfly variety, which is known as the milkweed or the arc. So sorry, that's what they are host for. So there's a particular species of butterfly called the plain tiger butterfly. In spite of increasing urbanization, this is ironically one butterfly variety which is actually thriving in this region. And they have a vibrant color because these butterflies, like several others as well, they can actually survive under many different conditions. They're really diverse habitat. There's total, okay, the plain tigers, they're part of a particular species which is known as the Nymphalidae, the largest family of butterflies, which have a total of 6,000 different species. They survive everywhere: arid areas, open areas, deciduous forests, urban territory, and others. Right? So, don't want to get into details much. We've already spoken about quite a bit to do with wildlife. There's this article on Binod, hashtag Binod. I have no clue what that is. You guys, younger people, will probably know much better. So, do let me know. I would love to understand where this hashtag Binod emerged from. Okay, now coming to the international page, I've already told you quite a bit on Kamala Harris. Don't want to speak much more about that, but yes, there's this article on how she's a supporter of criminal justice reform. She wants death penalty to be abolished and private prisons to be also abolished. I've spoken about Belarus, about China. The new, shall we say, cabinet has now been appointed in Sri Lanka. So the new cabinet of ministers, they have been sworn in. One of the media moguls, Mr. Summer Redstone, who built the Viacom CBS company, he has passed away. Our regards with him and his family. Right, China has accused USA of playing with fire because I had told you about this. The health secretary, Mr. Alex Azar, he visited Taiwan openly. This is something which did anger China immensely. Moving ahead, I'm gonna be moving into the business page, which is often one of the most depressing pages nowadays. However, the Birla Group, especially Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla, who's the chairperson of the Aditya Birla Group, he states that economic disruption to rural economy is less severe, while urban areas are suffering a lot. In fact, there was a report on rural areas how 78% people lost their work during the lockdown. There was this report a few days back, but he says through his expertise, because the builders, of course, established into every nook and cranny of the country, he says economic disruption in the rural areas will be less so. And in fact, he envisages a 6 to 8% GDP growth rate. That is immense for the next fiscal. Next fiscal, he means 2021 April to 2022 March. So if that can be, that will be really immense. He does state that such a thing could take place. Right. One of the companies that he feels is going to be at the center of this push will be Ultratech. Ultratech, which is a cement company. Right. Moving on further. However, another group, which is the UBS, which is of course a financial platform, they believe that India is going to face economic challenges for several years. There's worrying news from the United Kingdom. The world's fifth largest economy has apparently shrunk by a record 20% during the ongoing recession, and unemployment is also further expected to rise. There have been about 50,000 deaths in the UK. So growth did restart luckily in May because it had gone down so much. In fact, in June, the growth rate was a whopping 8.7%, which is very high for a developed nation, which is almost unprecedented for a developed nation, because developed nations, they start from a higher base. So this is something that needs to be taken into account. Fuel demand has dipped by 11.7% in July. Maybe good for the environment. Eventually, that could lead to something good. The NDMC has raised price of iron ore by 11%. Sundaram Fasteners is now into the red, making losses. There's news from Ashok Leyland, one of India's largest makers of commercial vehicles, the second largest producers after Tata Motors. They have suffered a debilitating loss of 389 crore rupees in the first quarter this year. On the other hand, pharmacy continues to see reasonably good days. The Aurobindo Pharma has consolidated its profit with a 23% rise in profits. Tata Power, however, does see now Tata Power has seen a rather sort of a contrarian measure where it has seen its net revenue net rise by 10%, although the total revenue has gone down by 17%. So revenues are total income that's gone down 17%, but net profits have gone by up by 10%, which clearly indicates that they have massively reduced their spending. The cost of operation has been reduced. Perhaps that's because of real estate costs being lowered. That could be one of the benefits of work from home. I'm not sure, not gone through the intricate details, but that might just be one of the many reasons. Just give me a moment, guys. Right. So let's continue with our stuff. Right. I've told you about Tata Power. PNB, we know Punjab National Bank, that did suffer a massive, there was an issue with its defaulters. So, big willful defaulters. Who are big willful defaulters? They are people who are aware of what's happening. And of course, the biggest, big obviously means the biggest of them. So the big willful defaulters still owe more than 37,000 crore rupees to the PNB. Among them, some of the leading names are ABG Shipyard, Geetanjali Gems, and the Winsome Diamond and Jewelry Company. So this, of course, massive. Emphasis, which is an Indian tech company, they have received a US patent for an AI system which is going to be put in place that uses data. Before I move on to sports, there's something from the diamond polishing industry. Any idea which is the world's largest diamond polishing center? At least tell me the country, even if you can't tell me the exact city. Any idea? The world's largest diamond polishing center. So, in fact, this city is responsible for around 80% of the global diamond polishing business. Tel Aviv in Israel and Antwerp in Belgium, they were historically the most superior. This was one of the big three, but now this city has come up unchallenged number one. I'm talking of Surat in Gujarat, India's ninth biggest city, the biggest of the tier two cities, if I may. So Surat is of course massive this thing, but the demand for diamonds has gone down. And in fact, there's this story about one of the workers, Mr. Rajan Patel. He has actually shifted from working on diamond polishing towards growing peanuts. Literally, I mean, he's doing peanut farming. So that's how the industry has evolved. Finally, I move on to sports. I will then quickly go through the Times of India. But first of all, a little bit into sports. You know, Ben Stokes, the English all-rounder, he's of New Zealand origin. He had to return home to New Zealand due to some personal reasons, and that's why he's going to miss the next two test matches with Pakistan. So there are massive selection issues for England. One of the options they're considering is to playing Joss Butler, who's the wicket-keeper batsman. He batted very well in the first test match. They want to retain him as a pure batsman, while Ben Foakes, who's a better wicket-keeper, they could include him as well in the squad. So Ben Foakes probably to replace Ben Stokes. He'll be the wicketkeeper while Joss Butler will be there purely as a batsman. I guess the game begins today. The Rajasthan Royals' fielding coach, who is Mr. Dishant Yagnik, he has tested positive for COVID-19, so he will not be departing with the team to the UAE. Rahul Dravid, who heads the NCA, he wants more the expertise of other former cricketers as well to be counted in. There's one funny story. I mean, I didn't even know Germany plays cricket, and I didn't know German women play cricket, and I had no clue Austrian women play cricket. In fact, there was a one-day international T20 match. In fact, between the 2020 match between the German women's cricket team and the Austrian women's cricket team. I had no idea. Then I saw the names. It clearly seems that they are all expats, either Indian origin or British origin. One of them is surname Goff, which is British. And of course, I can see some Indian names: Asmita Kohli, Anuradha, Dodalpur. So pretty much the Indian flag here. In this case, Shakib Al Hassan, one of the world's top limited overs all-rounders. He was banned for 2 years due to an approach in match fixing. He apparently did not share some of the data. That has now been reduced to 1 year, so he could soon play. He might return from his ban for Bangladesh's upcoming tour to in Sri Lanka. Right. Coming to football, Sevilla defeated Wolves in the second round of the Europa League. They are through to the in the quarterfinals. They are through to the semi-finals. Sevilla, they've won several tournaments in recent years. Won five of them in a decade's period. Of course, now they are through to the semis. Today is Atletico Madrid versus Leipzig. That should be an interesting game between two of the most hard-working teams, two of the largest runners. They do run a lot, these teams. Yes, that's correct, Charaya. You are right. Surat is the world's premier diamond polishing center. Congratulations. Right. Yesterday, PSG defeated Atalanta in the first of the quarterfinals held in Lisboa, capital of Portugal. India's football team could soon start playing. We have the World Cup qualifiers for the 2022 World Cup slated. It was supposed to be held this year, but they have now been postponed to next year. We have games against Qatar and Bangladesh and Afghanistan, which will be played all next year. I'm done with the Hindu. I'll quickly run through the Times of India. You may come up with any of your comments in the meanwhile. So there's one really important piece of news is a university rankings has been granted by the Education Ministry, and Jamia Millia University has been granted rank 1 in the government university rankings, followed by the Rajiv Gandhi University, which is in Arunachal Pradesh. JNU and Aligarh Muslim University stand third and fourth. So many congratulations to if any Jamia students, you've studied at Jamia at any stage in your life, if you are watching this session, many congratulations. You are part of this thing. Facebook has done something which I think was long due. They've actually removed 23 million hate posts because a lot of people are utilizing this thing for putting up hate stuff. So that definitely needs to be out. Great job by Facebook finally. It should be done periodically. There is also this news on how India has now overtaken Mexico to be on I think overtaken UK. Although there's another report that we haven't yet. UK has, as per that data, reached 50,000. So we are not really sure of the UK numbers, but there's this stable index which has been created on how open your city is. Some about 15 of India's biggest cities have been compared here. Right, I think most of the rest is done. There are some candidates for a new Maruti plant. Maruti is said to build another plant for manufacturing. Sonipat and Manesar, both in Haryana, have been selected as the candidates. Manesar, of course, not far from Gurugram, where it all started. There was also a report on different communities and their income and education levels. You can actually go through this study in details. It has been put up further on the 14th page. This was a report from the National Statistics Office about different communities, their school enrollment, education levels. So some of the communities have come out as economically deprived, and of course, women, as expected, are doing worse than men. But of course, their efforts to change this trend. Right, so I am done. Okay, I just had to go through the editorial as well of the TOI. Okay, so there is this article by Mr. Vivek Sharma. He is a senior director at CRISIL Infrastructure Advisory. CRISIL, please note, is a credit rating agency. It's affiliated to S&P, Standard and Poor, which is one of the big three of the credit rating industry in the US, of the world, in fact, one of the big three. So it was initially independent Indian company, but now affiliated to, now a subsidiary of S&P. So, Mr. Sharma has written about freedom and power and how autonomy for state electricity regulatory commissions can be the harbinger of big change. So, the state electricity regulating bodies, they should get greater freedom, and all of it should not be dominated purely by the central grid. So, right now there is too much of dominance of the central grid that he feels should change over a period of time. Right, that is pretty much it. I'll keep the session open for a few minutes. Any doubts and queries you have, please feel free to ask me, and then I will take this ahead. And then we can wrap up for the day. All those who are done, you may leave. Those who have doubts, please, you may stick on. Right. I can't see any questions as yet. Do let me know if there are. This is my code just to remind you. Do like, share, and subscribe to the session. The channel is Let's Crack Management Exams. So just let me know if there's anything else, and then I'll wrap this up. Let me check once again. Fair enough. I don't think there are any questions. If there are, do write to me later on. I will be happy to take them on. Thank you so much, guys. See you soon. Today there's just one session, and in fact today, tomorrow also I will be busy somewhere. I'm not gonna take. Saturday is Independence Day. Do enjoy that. My classes will restart on Sunday, which is 16th of August. Thank you so much, guys. See you soon, all of you.